Hello everyone and welcome back to the Minecraft myth-busting world, where we will be investigating a new feature that was added in Minecraft 1.11.1. If you haven't heard about this already, it is an absolute game changer. When you are flying through the sky in your Elytra, you can now use a Firework rocket and get a boost that's going to allow you to continue your Elytra flight. Now this rocket comes in 3 different forms. There is flight duration 1, 2 and 3, and it's got me wondering, as well as a lot of other things that we're going to investigate in this episode, exactly how long does the flight duration last for? The way that we're going to do this is by using the F3 screen and video editing. I will be recording all of the testing that we do, and I'll be able to use the video editing to figure out where the rocket boost starts and ends. Now the end bit might be a little bit tricky because I'm going to have to use F5 and look for the particle effects behind me and where they end. But we can get a decent estimate using this technique, and with it we'll be able to figure out the distance that we travel in blocks while the boost is happening, and also the amount of time that the boost lasts for. So here we have a command block. This is going to help us with our testing because it's going to teleport us, and we can activate it on a delay because I don't want to be touching the mouse while I do this. You see, this command block is going to teleport us so we are facing exactly forward. As you can see using the F3 screen, we're not looking slightly to the left or the right or up and down as well, and it means that these factors can't interrupt our testing. So now we are free to go into F5 mode. We can jump off the edge, activate our Elytra wings, and then we're ready to activate the Firework rocket while we're recording. And that's the test. Not very long to watch, I know. Here are the numbers for exactly how long each of those flights have lasted. As you can see, they are not very exact. If it were 1 second, 1.5, 2 seconds, we might have figured something out straight away, but I decided that we would do another 4 tests so that we had 5 in total for each flight. And the durations, as I learned, were slightly randomized each side. They're not always going to be the exact same length, which is interesting for sure. Now, I did manage to find a very distinct point where you can see the start and the end of the boost when I was editing, so it's not going to be 100% accurate, but we've clearly determined that the length of the boost will be randomized, and that's enough to work with, I think. So I took our numbers to a spreadsheet. I also measured the distance we travelled during the boost by comparing the coordinates we started at and ended at. And with the time in seconds, we can divide the distance by the time it took, and when we multiply the number we get by 60, we see a number emerge, which is our blocks per second speed. This is on average 31.7 for the first rocket, the second one is 32.9, and the third one is 32.6. That is the speed we travel at when using the 3 different rockets, and it's quite possible that some other factors made these less accurate. However, it seems fairly clear we have a decent estimate, so now we can move on to a couple of other tests. Firstly, I decided to do the flying test, going directly upwards, and then I followed it by going directly downwards. The results showed me that you would go faster downwards, but only by 1 or 2 blocks per second, and going upwards was still fast. You'd only be slowed down by 5 to 6 blocks per second. This is not a massive difference, and it shows that the rocket boost has a lot of oomph when it comes to fighting against gravity, but I'm sure all of you have figured that out already by simple observations. Beyond this simple test, things would get very difficult to calculate given all the variables and factors, and it doesn't look like the results would yield anything of value at all. This next one will surprise you if you didn't know about it already, but you can use your Elytra underwater, although you don't move very fast at all. However, you can use the rocket underwater as well, which is fantastic, and you can see we get quite a boost. But what I decided to do was crunch the numbers once again. I did some tests where I was measuring the coordinates we started and ended up, and then I put them all into a spreadsheet, did the same bunch of calculations, and the results were extremely familiar, so much so that I figured out that you will lose about 15% of your boost speed when you are underwater. The duration of the boost seems to be about the same, but you lose about 15%, which on average is about 5 blocks per second. I should also mention that the maximum flight duration you can have is 127. This of course was done with commands. I'll show you the command right here. You can change that number to whatever you like, and to show you that this is no joke, we're going to fly and then hit this thing, and you'll see that we will continue for a very long time. I wonder how many laps around the myth-busting world I can do with this. Turns out you can get a fair few laps in, and also the particle effects are still going to be at your feet once you're done flying. What's even cooler is that you can then start flying again and the boost comes back, which is really awesome. So moving on, I've calculated something that I'm sure many of you have been thinking about. How efficient are each of these rockets for the amount of materials that you put into them? We'll start off with paper because that's the easiest. You put one in each, so the most efficient would be the third one. But paper is a very disposable resource, so we're not going to worry about that too much. We're going to be looking at the gunpowder, which is slightly more valuable, and you put different amounts in each rocket. So starting off with the first one, this is going to be 100% efficient because you put one piece of gunpowder in, and it lasts for this amount of time. Now we're going to ignore the blocks per second speed because they're pretty much the same for each one. When it comes to the duration though, when you add that extra piece of gunpowder, you're only going to get 20% more extra time for that one piece of gunpowder that you put in. When it comes to adding two extra pieces of gunpowder, you actually get 28% more time for each piece. So it's slightly more efficient than this one. However, I would advise if paper is disposable for you, then you should go with the Boost 1 rockets all of the time. That being said, there is one other factor, which is the amount of space it takes up in your inventory. I'll leave that one for you to decide though. I've got another tip for you. You can make your flights nice and fancy by doing this. You can see behind me there's a whole bunch of fireworks going off. That's because I've treated this one like it were a normal firework rocket. That means that I put firework stars into it. As you can see, I put quite a few into this one. Not especially useful, I know, but it's something cool you could do on a multiplayer server. You know, fly around, alert your friends to your presence in the area. The speed and the power of these rockets mean that there isn't really any tricks to be learned here. We've figured out the average speed it's going to boost you at and for how long that boost will last, but beyond that it's a very powerful and user-friendly system. There isn't really any quirks to be figured out. It's a case of click and fly. So that concludes my episode here on the Firework rockets. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like, and if you have any suggestions, questions that you want answered in an episode of Mythbusting, leave it down below in the comment box. But that is it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.